Hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact video series. My name is Ryan Duffy, and I'm the director of the museum, and this week we're going to talk about something very applicable to this time of year as all the kids go back to school. So we're actually going to talk about the history of the schools in the village and then the city of Batavia, and show off some of the pictures of what they look like and how they transformed over time, and their uses over time. So we're going to go through their history and learn a little bit more how education grew in Batavia, particularly amongst the public school buildings. So we're going to begin talking about what schools were like in the village of Batavia, which would be pre-1915. In 1813, the first public school was erected on the corner of East Main Street and Ross Street, which was just a simple brick building. In 1848, a brick Union Free School was opened on the corner of Liberty and School Street, which is how it got its name, and that operated until the 1870s. And the first public high school classes were held in 1861. In 1875, the first high school building was erected on Ross Street, just south of where the junior-senior high school is today. It cost $75,000 to build and was considered one of the finest and best equipped schools in the state. And by the 1880s, several other schools were constructed, including the Washington Street School, Lincoln Street, William Street, and the East and West schools. In 1922, it became apparent that the current high school was no longer meeting up to standards, so it was voted to build a new school just on the property next to the current high school, and it was finally completed in 1924. And the old high school was razed after a fire in the spring and was actually made into the playground for the new high school. However, by the late 40s and early 50s, it seemed that a new high school would be needed, and a committee was formed to find a new place. And in 1958, they voted to build a new building on State Street, and it finally opened in September 1961, and that's where the current Batavia High School is. But this was not the end of the old high school, as it was converted into the junior high school, and that began as soon as classes closed in 1961. The gymnasium became shops for industrial arts. Some classrooms were added by enclosing the large opening area on the first floor, and a separate gymnasium was built as an addition. And in 1982, it officially became the Batavia Middle School. In 1915, the city of Batavia had 5 public elementary schools. They were the William Street School, which was later renamed Lincoln School, and that was built in 1891, but was demolished after a replacement school was built on the south side. Pringle Avenue School, which was built in 1883, and was also torn down when the need was no longer needed on the south side. East School on East Main Street and West School on West Main Street were both built in 1891 and look very similar. East School was used until 1956, and it's now where it was, the site is now used by the Salvation Army. And the West School was actually built on the corner of South Lyon and West Main, and it was used in the early 1920s, but became the Metal Trade School in the 1930s before it was eventually torn down. Now, the Washington School on Washington Street was built in 1885, but was completely rebuilt in 1903 to what it looks like even today, and it was closed as a school in 1961 and then for a time used for the headquarters for the school district. In 1925, 3 other schools were built: the Union School, Brooklyn Avenue, and South Jackson Street schools. Now, Jackson Street School is still used as an elementary school today. It opened in 1929. In 1931, it was enlarged, and in 1954, it actually housed all the students in grades 1 through 9 that lived on the south side of Batavia. However, in 1961, it was transferred over to just an elementary school and is now the lower elementary school for Batavia. Brooklyn School was formed on Brooklyn Street near Pearl Street, and it opened also in 1929, but was closed in 1979 and is no longer used by the school district. Now, the school on Union Street opened also in 1929 and was named Robert Morris School, after Robert Morris, who owned the property before the Holland Land Company. And it was enlarged over time, expanded in 1955, but was eventually fell out of use due to lack of students, but now is actually getting some renewed use starting this year. And in 1950, it was deemed that another elementary school would be needed. They chose a spot on Vine Street, and they named this John Kennedy School after the superintendent of schools from 1890 to 1913, who was really instrumental in improving the Batavia School District. And that opened in 1956 and is still in operation and is the upper middle school for Batavia. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of our Artifact video series and learned a little bit more about how The public schools in Batavia grew over its time from a village to a city, and even into today's era. And if you did enjoy this, be sure to stop by the museum, as we do have a little display on early education here in Batavia and sort of its growth throughout time, and some artifacts that go back even to the mid-1800s dealing with our education systems. As always, please check out the rest of the videos on our channel on YouTube, the Holland Land Office Museum. As you can see, all of our other artifact videos, as well as our guest speakers and concerts, and be sure to check out all of that. And if you do enjoy things, give them a like and maybe even subscribe, as it gets you notified quicker when we do release new material, and it helps the channel out a little bit more. And be sure to stop by the museum and check out even more things than just the education materials, as there's hundreds of artifacts on display at any time that are very interesting, and we'll be happy to share even more information with you than just what's in these videos.